we pay on our debt outstanding here in Knox County. The federal government's paying about $400 billion a year right now on their debt service. And we're going to increase that by 100, 200, 300 billion dollars. I mean, it's just not sustainable. And just the fact that at some point it's really going to cause, I would argue it already has, but at some point it's really going to cause some monetary problems for the dollar. In addition, so much of this is politically driven, as you mentioned. Who's going to be getting the bailouts? It's one thing if we're looking at replacing the lost revenue for states and counties, municipalities because of COVID-19. Something completely different when we're talking about things like pension funds and just being able to use this money because you've acted in a fiscally irresponsible manner. We've been extremely fortunate here in Knox County. My predecessor, who's now a congressman, Tim Burchett, was a great fiscal conservative. He put the county in a good spot, and we're still in a good spot. But then I look at some of the other places, say here in Tennessee, we have one of the lowest debt burdens in the country. So Congress is going to give another state billions of dollars, and who does it come at the expense of Tennessee, or why is it that some other state would require this and Tennessee doesn't, or not to the extent that they do? And that happens is the people who have been fiscally responsible end up paying for the fiscal irresponsibility of other places.
Yeah, Mayor, what are some things that you've done in Knox County to be fiscally responsible?
Well, as I mentioned, we furloughed quite a few people. We have a hiring freeze in place. We won't be doing any raises for this. We also, we've eliminated any vacant positions. This goes along with the hiring freeze. We have a freeze on travel and training and those sort of things. So we've gotten what I call like low-hanging fruit. We've addressed that. As we go forward and see how much economic damage has really been done, we'll consider doing more. They just released, I think it was March, revenue number for the state of Tennessee that was down $640 million, which is like a 40% drop year over year. And no matter how you slice it, that's significant. Our budget is coming up. Our fiscal year starts in July, it ends in June. And, we have to see where we are at the end of our year going into the next year. We're preparing our budget now. And hopefully the actions we take with our new budget are going to reflect the new reality of our revenue.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, we're here with Mayor Glenn Jacobs, Mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, talking about reckless bailouts being considered by Congress. You can take part in this conversation by going to rejectbailouts.com or hit us up on social using the hashtag rejectbailouts. Mayor, which would better protect the residents of Knox County from economic harm? A bailout from Washington, D.C., or allowing people to get back to work safely?
I think allowing people to get back to work safely. Again, with bailouts, just saw a really interesting article today about with the payroll protection plan, how strip clubs had sued to get payroll protection. And of course, a judge would say, hey, they're taxpayers too, they get it. And just all the different political stuff that goes into a bailout. And of course, we saw it in 2008 with, everybody, the big companies just lining up and getting the money first. We saw with the payroll protection plan and some of the other things that Congress did that were supposedly for small business protection that ended up being used by corporations. And of course, big corporations have lobbyists, and that's what they're there for, is to get the money first. So in my opinion, it'd be much better to get our economy back on track. Unfortunately, I think that's something that's going to take a little while at this point. But I would rather see people be productive than relying on the federal government to just print money and send it our way or anyone's way.
Yeah, Mayor, when we think about states, are there any other actions that states should or could be doing right now to responsibly keep people safe, all the while reducing economic harm?
Sure. I think that all along we really should have concentrated on a policy of what they call vertical mitigation, which is identifying the vulnerable population and doing as much as possible to ensure that they're safe. When we look at everybody else, certainly, doing as far as advising people what to do, but I am very uncomfortable with this idea of shutting the economy down to begin with. And in fact, I'm a little confused as to how the goalposts have moved from flattening the curve to now you can't open up until there's a vaccine. And it was 15 days to flatten the curve, and now it's keeps on going and going and going and going. So that's very problematic. And even some of the things that were done as far as with elective surgeries at hospitals to increase hospital capacity is a temporary measure. Okay, when you see the amount that they were worried about COVID patients overrunning the hospitals and overwhelming the system. At the same point in time, now what's happened is we've put doctors out of work, we put we put nurses out of work, and we've seen just tremendous damage done to hospitals' financials. Can't back up on that stuff, but I do think that we need to open things back up, and I don't think we have any choice in that. I think the economic damage is significant, and when I look at this whole thing, I see a health issue that has precipitated an economic collapse, which is now resulting and will result in a monetary fiscal crisis. And I think we'll see some political upheaval on the other side of that, unfortunately.
Yeah, Mayor, you've been very courageous in putting your county in a strong fiscal position, and been a very ardent opponent of these reckless bailouts. Yet you've still taken some criticism locally there. How would you respond to those critics?
I mean, it is what it is. Again, we see this in Congress sometimes, where someone will get something inserted into a bill and then actually vote against it because they don't agree with the bill. But if Congress is going to pass it, their constituents deserve it as much as anyone else. And it's the same way here. If Congress is going to do this, we should get our share. Should Congress do it? No. But if they're going to, we have to fight to ensure that our people get their share just like everybody else's.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, we're with Mayor Glenn Jacobs from Knox County, Tennessee, talking about reckless bailouts being considered by Congress. You can take part in the conversation by going to rejectbailouts.com or hit us up on social media. Use the hashtag rejectbailouts. Mayor, today we've been talking about politicians being, politicians, but we've also seen a lot of good, and we've also seen people making the best out of this situation. What's happening in Knox County right now that keeps you inspired every day?
Our community is a wonderful community. I think it's the best place in the world to live and to work and raise a family. One of the things that's really struck me throughout this entire time is how small business owners look at their employees as family. And when this all started, I was talking with a couple of business owners who said that it would be cheaper for them to just shut down operations completely than to keep going. But the reason that they were still going was because they wanted to ensure that their folks had a paycheck for as long as they could. And it's one of those things like that. They didn't have to do that. Didn't make any business sense, but they were doing that because they cared about the people. And then also just all the folks that work very hard. Our health department has been working overtime on this, and I think they've done a great job. Of course, they've been working with the hospitals and healthcare providers who have also done a great job. So when you look at the community and just think about all the different people, anytime that work very hard to make your place a great place to live, that's inspiring. And then you see it in times of crisis when people get out and do everything they can for their community. That is truly inspiring.
Great. Mayor, could you afford me one wrestling question?
Sure.
Okay. So it's October 97, I believe. You're debuting the Kane character at In Your House. You come down the ramp. A 12-year-old version of myself is terrified that the Undertaker's brother is finally shown up, and you ripped the door off the cell. I've always wondered, is it a shoot door or a working door?
That's the secret of the trade. I can't tell you.
Okay. There we go. totally a shoot door,
Sorry,
everyone.
Ryan.
Totally a shoot door. That's totally fine. Mayor, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for everything that you're doing for folks in Knox County and really standing up for localities across the country.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Good. Folks, we've been with Mayor Glenn Jacobs of Knox County. You can take part in this conversation by going to rejectbailouts.com, use the hashtag rejectbailouts, and until next time, I'm Ryan Black with Americans for Prosperity.
A big thank you to everyone who joined us here at Americans for Prosperity, Tennessee. We thank Mayor Glenn Jacobs for coming on and speaking with AFP Regional Director Ryan Black. As they said, please go to rejectbailouts.com. That's rejectbailouts.com and make your voice heard on this issue of opposing these reckless state bailouts. Stay tuned for more here at Americans for Prosperity, Tennessee.